Welcome back from All-Star Weekend. Jake Oettinger returns as a champion. We preview the month of February for the Dallas Stars and a possible best on best, plus the NHL returns to the Olympics. So much to jump into on today's episode of Locked On Stars.
Your Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan and play-by-play voice of the Chippewa Steel. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. I hope everybody enjoyed their All-Star Weekend and the festivities that come along with it, watching Jake Oettinger compete in the skills competition. And of course, winning the whole darn thing with Team Matthews, and he put up a pretty good performance. Or maybe you just got away from the game of hockey and now you're ready for the final push to the playoffs. Whatever path you chose, excited to be with you. Of course, my weekend was filled with hockey, and what could have gone wrong seemed to go wrong. So I'm ready for a clean slate and for a good week here on Locked On Stars. Of course, we'll highlight Otter. I want to talk about the month of February. A lot of intriguing matchups and good teams the Stars will be facing this month, and the possibility of a best on best and the NHL returning to the Olympics. The NHL drop some of this information over the weekend, and sometimes it gets lost in the mix. So I'll be sure to update you on that as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. So I did not watch every waking moment of All-Star Weekend. So you can correct me if I'm wrong, or if you have a difference in opinions, please let me know in the comment section below. The All-Star Fantasy Draft. I love the idea that they were bringing it back. It looked a bit awkward from what I saw and from the majority that witnessed it on Twitter as well. I heard there was some reports about guys expecting it to be in studio in some sorts, and all of a sudden it was on the ice. And look, that's just the NHL, I feel like. And some of the guys aren't the most outgoing or energetic when it comes to being on the mic either. So it can be a bit awkward in some situations. But hey, what All-Star Weekend really is about, I think, is the skills competition in the game itself. I thought the skills competition looked really fun. It was nice to see them do skills instead of the gimmick events that they've had in recent years. But Jake Oettinger did extremely well, went 8 for 10 against Eilias Pettersson, who called him out in the breakaway challenge. So way to go, Jake. And then, of course, he wins the whole darn thing with Team Matthews over Team McDavid. So very, very nice to see Jake Oettinger have a ton of fun and, of course, return as a winner. But the reason I wanted to talk about Otter here today is Mike Heika, the wonderful senior staff writer on DallasStars.com, put out an article on the adversities that Jake Oettinger has faced this year. And I thought it was a great summary of really the entire offseason and to this point in the year, about how he spent the summer not getting surgery on his ankle, thought it would get better with time and rest. And then in July, doctors said we should probably do surgery. And that kind of derailed his habit, so to speak. And he had to go into rehab, of course. And it also changed the way he practiced. And it's well documented. And I've stated that his numbers are not very good this season by any stretch of the imagination. And if the Stars want to do what they want to do, reach their goals, he's going to have to be better for them to make some noise come springtime. But I thought it was really interesting how he had to change the way he practiced, so to speak. And goalie coach Jeff Reese has a quote in the piece saying he loves to practice. He does. And he loves to get out there early and do the goalie drills. But the thing is, he learned a very valuable lesson last year. And Oettinger played almost 81 games, including the playoffs. And he stated, both of us learned a lesson. You just can't do as much practice. So we have to make up for it through video. And he's good with that now. And Otter had to kind of deal with that mentally, right? He cannot be on the ice as much and put his body through that rigorous routine night in and night out if he wants to be fresh when it matters most. And maybe that has bleeded into some of his inconsistencies in net this season. He's having to learn a new routine. He's probably done the same routine for the last 6 years of his life, let's say 4 or 5 ever since he turned pro. And then he has this injury, and now you have to switch your whole mindset. Goaltending, of course, is 90% mental. And maybe his lack of practice or lack of on-ice training has kind of seeped into some of his play this season. And maybe it's going to take him a bit of time to get used to this routine of watching video a ton and getting in mental reps that way. And when he becomes really comfortable at that, because it is a pretty stark change when you really think about it as a goaltender, it's probably all routine based. Everybody up here has a different way to go about things. And especially goalies, as we know, can be very locked in to their certain routine, like a starting pitcher in baseball. They say you don't want to talk to Max Scherzer when it's a start day. Like, he's kind of getting in his zone and he's kind of crazy to some degree. And goalies have that kind of demeanor at some points. And he also stated, Jake Oettinger himself, you want to be fresh. You don't want to be nagging stuff to pile up on you. The strength staff has been awesome. They know when to put their foot on the gas and when to chill. It's a routine that I've learned, and I know what I have to do to play well in games. It's not being on the ice every day for 2 hours. That's fun and something I want to do, but you have to learn. So he is going through this transition, and very early in his career, of learning a different way to do things, so to speak. So look, it maybe sounds like I'm working in a built-in excuse for his play, and I'm really not trying to, because his numbers aren't good or not what we expect of a number one netminder. Okay. But two things can be true at once. I think it does provide some background information and behind the scenes of what's going on with Jake Oettinger and how he's preparing for games a bit differently. And yes, he's not on the ice every day as much. And I thought that gave a nice inside look to the routine and what Jake Oettinger is going through. But it's awesome to see him get rewarded as an all-star, even though it's not his best season. But Pete DeBoer mentioned, I thought it was great because it was kind of his body of work, so to speak. And he's been really good recently. Of course, he joins his other two draft mates, the 2017 pair of Miro Heiskanen and Jason Robertson, to go to the All-Star game. And it looked like he had a ton of fun, and it was nice to see him get recognized and, of course, get picked by the home Maple Leaf, so to speak, with all the Toronto guys on that. And it's always good to win. I can never scoff at a championship, and the memes just write themselves with Toronto having a championship on All-Star Weekend. We'll see if they can do that come springtime. I don't know. It's been a while for them. It's been a while for the Dallas Stars too. All right, so they have to exercise some own demons of themselves, but they've been a bit closer than those Maple Leafs had in recent years. Okay, let's segue in to some game talk or some schedule talk. The Dallas Stars and the month of February. Let's take a look at some of the games, some intriguing matchups, what's going on. And this will be an important month for the Dallas Stars. It absolutely will. We'll do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Sleeper. It's past the halfway point in the season, Stars fans. There's been a lot of highs and lows. We have a break here on All-Star Weekend and ready to jump back into it tomorrow, regardless of where The Stars are in the current standings. I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey. Because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contest. All you have to do is pick the studs. You can do the Sidney Crosbys, your Nathan McKinnons, the Connor McDavids, which are all at All-Star Weekend, and choose more or less on Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, or even saves if you want to pick a goaltender like Jake Oettinger, plus, minus, or whatever in a given game. And to win 100 times your bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. And you heard me, Stars fans, you can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention. Nail those picks, and you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL, and you get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and with location availability. So the Dallas Stars have 13 games in the month of February. They get it started. Their return from All-Star break tomorrow against the Buffalo Sabers on a Tuesday. And they got to start off with a back-to-back right away. And they take on the Toronto Maple Leafs this Wednesday as well. But a lot of Eastern Conference teams and a lot of playoff teams that the Stars are facing here in the month of February. So they have their work cut out for them. And I talked about All-Star Weekend coming at a great time. The Stars just needed a reset. They played almost a month or over a month of games without either Jake Oettinger and Miro Heiskanen on the ice together. So Miro, of course, came back for the final 2 games right before the break. So he'll be fresh and ready to go. And of course, Jake Oettinger will be. So Stars have a lot of Eastern Conference opponents, but 9 out of the 13 games come against current playoff teams. And Nashville is right now tied for the second wild card spot. So they're pretty much a playoff team. And I think they'll edge out St. Louis. I truly do, unless Jordan Binnington goes on an absolute heater. But you got Carolina twice, who has really turned it on lately. Toronto is always tough for Dallas, especially on the road, and it will be on the back end of a back-to-back. So that will certainly be tough, but you get a trip to the Bell Center, a little afternoon matinee on Saturday, February 10th. You got the Oilers, who can't seem to lose. That's another Saturday matinee. You got Boston and New York on a back-to-back in a few weeks. I mean, talk about a tough 2 games there. You play a lot of games towards the end of the month in a short amount of time. They end up playing, 7 games in about 13 days. I think that's going to be brutal. You already have 3 back-to-backs in the month. So the Stars do not get a ton of schedule breaks, and they're trying to push for the number 1 seed in the Central Division. They're tied with Colorado in games played, but just trailing by a point. They are second in the Central Division with 66 points. Winnipeg's right behind them with 65, but the Jets do have 2 games in hand. The Stars do play the Winnipeg Jets to end the month on the 29th. So you get a couple cracks at division opponents. Nashville, you get the Avs, and you get Winnipeg. You do get tough opponents, really, really tough teams on your second half of back-to-backs. Toronto is not going to be a cakewalk. New York is not going to be a cakewalk. Colorado is not going to be a cakewalk. And that's also being home and having to head to Colorado. So the Stars do not get a ton of scheduling breaks. They do get Ottawa and Montreal in there, which should not be huge tests, but the Stars like to make things interesting. They do play a lot on the road, just 4 home games in the month of February. So they'll be away from the American Airlines Center, and they open up on a 3-game road trip here with Buffalo, Toronto, in Montreal. Fortunately, Stars have been really good on the road, 14-5-4 at home. They're 16-8-2, and they have won 3 straight as they entered the All-Star break. So a ton of positives moving into the All-Star break, and this is where we're going to find what type of team the Dallas Stars are going to look like moving forward. And then you bring in the conversation with the deadline looming. Where are the Stars going to be? Saw there was some reports coming out about Chris Tanev and him requiring a second-round pick and maybe an asset. That would be nice if Jim Neal wants to make that move. Cap space, of course, plays into all of this, and the Stars do not have a ton of cap space. So it's going to take some gymnastics, as I talked about last Thursday on the final episode of the week, taking a look at contracts and which guys you may be willing to move off of and some of those trade pieces, right? And that's going to be a conversation. Vancouver goes out and gets Elias Lindholm, so they're stacking up. They're making a ton of moves and going all in, trying to pay off what has been a phenomenal start for them as they lead the Western Conference. A lot of dominoes are going to be falling here in the month of February, and the Stars team is good. They are good, but I don't know if they're capable of winning a cup with the team they have on the ice right now. The defense is not going to be good enough, especially with the way the goaltenders are playing. And Otter can really change and turn on the switch, and we can think a lot differently about this team at the end of the month. But as of right now, from what we've seen, the product on the ice, I don't believe it's going to be good enough. So there's going to be a lot of dominoes falling, and the deadline last season was really fun. So I'm looking forward to it. I think the NHL is always a bit behind sports such as the NBA and the NFL. And those are two widely different sports and the structures, of course, of contracts and the way it works. But with the NBA being all about player mobility and just young players, even today in the modern NHL, are not afraid to voice their opinions, especially young guys, about where they want to play. Look at Gauthier in Philadelphia said, I do not want to be a Philadelphia Flyers. Said, all righty, we're going to ship your butt over to Anaheim. Enjoy that. And they got a good player in return for him. So, I think the player movement and the deadline could be fireworks, so to speak, this season as well. But Dallas needs to pick up a few wins, of course, and keep the beat rolling. I'm excited to watch them in this month too, because there's just a lot of fun teams, right? I mean, Toronto and Montreal, you got Edmonton, Boston, the Rangers, and of course some really fun division matchups with Colorado and Winnipeg. And this could maybe make or break you winning the Central Division this month, because you play a lot of Eastern Conference teams. So if you win a lot of these games, you can make up some ground, and you have to get some help from others. Of course, you were hoping to make up some ground before the All-Star break, but the Stars lost Otter, and then you lost Miro, and you had that 10-game stretch where you played like 9 games against Central Division teams, and it did not go as planned, but they had some injuries to deal with, and they got through the month, and they played very, very well. They played well in stretches, and they probably outperform expectations with having your number one defenseman out and Otter out, with Wedgwood really stepping up. So I do really like the makeup of the team. Now you got Miro Heiskanen and Harley on a pairing, and they're just going to light up the rest of the league. So a very, very intriguing month of February. They have 9 games on the road and 4 at home. And you got some tough buildings: Toronto, Montreal, Boston, and New York on a back-to-back. I'll say it again, Carolina a couple of times in this month. So you have playoff teams and a few teams just on the outside looking in, like New York and Nashville. So not every game's going to be a cakewalk, and it never is with the Stars. They've been scoring a lot of goals. They've been giving up quite a bit too. And the majority of these games have really come down to the Stars just not closing out games. They've had leads late, and I would love to see that change here in the next few weeks. Just closing games out. Doesn't matter who the opponent is, even if it's the Ottawa Senators. You can't have a 2-goal lead late and have a game forced to overtime. Got to put it away. And we'll see what the Stars look like coming out of All-Star break tomorrow. I think it's going to be a perfect reset. And I'm just really, really stoked to have hockey back too, to have the Dallas Stars back. It's good to get back on track. I told you, I was just waiting. There was going to be a time where I'm ready for hockey to return. It was nice to have a little break, but ready to watch Pete DeBoer and the crew go to work. I want to touch on the best on best Four Nations tournament sort of thing, and the possible return of the NHL players to the Olympics. Some information came up about that over the All-Star weekend. We'll do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by FanDuel. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. We're just about a week away from the Super Bowl 58, the San Francisco 49ers versus Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. FanDuel has so many ways for you to get involved as well, and in this season with a W or 2 or 3. Time to make up for some of those mistakes you made during the year. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which player will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. Always love who will score the first touchdown or the first points in the game. You can make some dough there. New customers, join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook of the NFL. Be sure to check out Locked On Sports today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts on Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Be sure to subscribe to Locked On Stars. Hit that notification bell. Thank you to all you everydayers out there. You can subscribe to Locked On Stars. Follow Locked On Stars on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at JoeyTheJet19. Whatever. Throw a ton of stuff out there. Always, of course, appreciate the engagement on there. Love when you guys firing comments, firing at me after some of my just heinous takes. I understand they're not always great, but I try to provide fun content, okay? I'm just trying to be entertaining for everybody out there, for all you Stars fans. And what I think is going to be really, really entertaining is this Four Nations face-off tournament that's supposed to happen in 2025. These in-season tournaments now are becoming a trend or a fad, so to speak, and they are working their way into the National Hockey League, and I think it's going to be really, really cool. So they're expected to have 4 teams: Canada, Finland, Sweden, and the U.S. in an international competition, in NHL Four Nations face-off. And of course, you're going to have the best on best. So Connor McDavid spoke about it and said just the opportunity to do that is a dream come true. I've been vocal about this, and I feel it's important for hockey as we continue to try and grow our game internationally and at home. And yes, it is very important to grow the game of hockey. And I think it's important for the game to play in different spots. I think the global series is great. Look, the National Hockey League is always going to be second fiddle to other sports in the US. It's just how it is, right? Football's king. It always will be, but they have markets like Finland and Sweden, and Norway, and even Germany with Leon Draisaitl as a team. And I know Germany won't have a team in this tournament, so to speak, but there are opportunities to grow the game in Europe, where hockey is huge in a lot of countries like Czechia, and you need to take advantage of that. So I think it'll be awesome. It says the in-season 2025 NHL Four Nations face-off will consist of a total of 7 games during a 9-day period from February 12th to 20th, along with 2 practice days, February 10th and 11th, and will be held in 2 yet to be named North American cities, 1 in Canada and 1 in the United States. Of course, they're probably going to keep it here for the first one. And then I would assume if they do it more, they'll start going over to other countries and maybe be competing across the pond, so to speak. Sucks to not really have Russia in there. It's hard to say best on best when Russia's not in there as well. I know that's been a huge gripe with the World Junior Tournament, but I understand the geopolitics and all that and why they're not playing. I get it, but it's always fun when Russia's in it because they do produce a lot of talent, and the KHL is the second best hockey league in the world. And it's usually better when Russia's in it. But look, I'm not going to scoff at Finland and Sweden, because with Finland, you're going to get half the Dallas Stars roster. So it'll be awesome to see guys like Miro and Essa, Hakanpää be able to join it in. Jake Oettinger for U.S. Thomas Harley, we'll see if he's going to be a candidate for Canada. Maybe he sneaks in there, but those type of players get the opportunity to play in a best on best, and that's what it's all about too. And then to kind of segue into the Olympics, I was always a fan of not necessarily having the NHL guys there, but it is the game's so much better when it is. it is, but I always enjoyed the nature of having collegiate players, or even some guys that were retired from the NHL but could still play a bit, especially when I was in college for the last few Olympics. It was fun to see guys like Nick Perbix, who I got to cover at St. Cloud State, get to play in the Olympics. Ryan Poehling, who of course is now with Philadelphia. Guys like that I had some connections to in a way, got to play on the Olympic team. And even our head coach, Brett Larson at St. Cloud State, got to go over to, I believe it was Pyeongchang. I think so in 2018, or maybe it was 2020, whenever that Winter Olympics went on. Don't kill me for that. But he also got to serve on the bench for that. But man, it was always, I remember being glued to the TV watching in 2014, right? In Vancouver, or was it 2011? I'm sorry if I messed that up. Years are hard. 2020 destroyed me on dates, but watching the U.S. versus Canada gold medal game, I believe that was 2014, was just so electric. In Sidney Crosby scoring that golden goal, that's a memory I will not forget. I remember being so glued to the TV and being heartbroken that the U.S. lost, but Gary Bettman did mention that they have the intention of returning to the Olympics in 2026, and then they have the World Cup, and then 2 years later for the Olympics in 2030, and then 2 years after that to play in the World Cup. So it's kind of a cycle they want to get to, and I think that's really great for the game, and it'll be awesome for the fans, and that's what it's all about. Getting the best players in the world to play each other more often. And it gives you that opportunity to have the fantasy team dream, right? The All-Star game isn't really like that anymore, just because it's in the middle of the year. Some guys don't want to be there. Nikita Kucherov. But it's hard for them to compete, right? Because they got to stay healthy, right? And I get that. Like that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, you're not going to go through some rigorous 3-on-3 tournament. Just for bragging, right, so to speak. Yeah, there's some change involved, but getting guys to compete full out for their country, because you're joking if you think that the Finns don't care about that, the Swedes don't care about that, the Canadians don't care about proving they're the best in the world. Look at the World Junior Tournament, and those are just kids. And I know they're not getting paid and all that good stuff. And just because these guys are getting paid healthy sums of cash, don't tell me it doesn't matter to them that they're the best in the world. Their country is the best in the world. And that will be awesome. Awesome for the NHL to get back into. And I'm interested to see this little Four Nations tournament. They teased it as a bit of an appetizer before they kind of get back into the international swing of things. And I love the Olympic sheet. The Olympic sheet is awesome. More room, more creativity, more fabulous plays. That's what it's all about, baby. So excited for that. So I figured I'd toss some of that information in there in case you did not digest that over the weekend with all the other festivities going on. Alrighty, that'll wrap up today's episode of Locked On Stars. Welcome back from All-Star Weekend. Have a wonderful Monday, Stars fans. Have a wonderful start to your week. Stars hockey back in action tomorrow against the Buffalo Sabers. We'll be here tomorrow. We'll talk about that a bit, and we'll get ready to hit the ground running for this playoff push. Thank you. As always, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow. So long, Stars fans.